Hello world, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Advance Wars by Web Grand Strategy Cast. Today's episode will be covering my turn on day 47 of my Asia Grand Strategy campaign. But first, we have a Wars World news update covering everything that's happened since our last episode. So here's how things were at the end of my turn and the beginning of day 47. Following my turn, of course, is Blue Moon, who moves a tank out north to begin to engage Red's infantry, and meanwhile, you see his ships out at sea like that, take some pretty fearsome shots. They knock down that rocket, and they kind of advance the line a little bit. Now that you see Red has gotten his battleship into position right here, now it looks like Blue is attempting to avoid that. However, he did leave a battleship exposed, so he will very likely lose that to Red next turn. And it looks like Red is looking to form that link of battleships that I had suggested previously. Looks like he's getting around to doing that, maybe. Then he will have a solid defensive line of ships there. So continuing on with Blue's turn. So you see he moves 2 troops back right here. If you didn't notice that, that was these 2 squares. He joined his infantry together to clear out these spaces. Now this was because I had captured Blue's territory here, in fact a city, and I controlled this property kind of when we ceased hostilities a couple dozen turns back. And I had tried to negotiate with him before and he just kind of ignored me, but I never captured the property so as to avoid initiating another conflict. Well, now, here on day 47, now that Blue Moon has mentioned he's going to be ending any truces between us, I gave him one last opportunity to trade these 2 squares back for this property. I told him if, he wasn't off of these squares by the end of the turn, I would consider it a trade and I would just take this property, and then that would be on him. So I think that was finally able to put enough pressure on him here to get him to back off these spaces, and now I will give him this property here. However, he's already said that truces are off between us, so that means I can have more battleships and more indirect fire right up close to his coast, and I don't need to worry about it because, well, he's the one who dissolved the truce between us. So from there you can see he's beginning to reach a bit northward too, but he doesn't have too many units to head north. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what Red Fire just did right there. First thing he did was unload with his rocket, his 2 battleships, and yep, he moves his 3rd battleship into position here, completing this chain of battleships here that Blue Moon will just not want to have to come across and deal with. Especially not with these half-damaged troops and up against battleships that are in 3-star defensive cover in port. Not sure this artillery is really contributing much to the fight. This would be much better as a rocket as well to provide a little bit more coverage. But I suppose there's really not a lot Red can do with it on this island, seeing as he is pretty island locked. Not much he can do with artillery. Red, of course, continuing to take the peninsula. And it looks like a submarine takes a big chunk out of Blue's battleship. Secretly, a submerged sub. Hard to notice that. And he continues to move his battleship in order to take the mainland. And that is going to take us to my turn on day 47. So on day 47, officially the truce between me and Blue Moon ends. And I suppose that was the start of day 47, so that actually would have been Blue Moon's turn on 47. Really was when it ended. But now it's my turn, and our truce is no longer in effect. Meanwhile, now that I'm no longer in a defensive alliance with Blue Moon, I actually offered a brief neutrality to Red Fire, because I'm more concerned with consolidating my territories up in the north here. And if Blue does not want to be in an alliance with me or in a direct association, well then I don't need to come to his defense now, do I? So I think taking a couple of these positions up in the north would help bolster my income a little bit. It would give me a couple more useful factories. You see, this is a lot of empty space with not a lot of infrastructure, not a lot of roads. See, this rocket here can hardly move forward. So it is certainly not high value terrain. It's certainly not high value territory, but there is a lot of it. And so I'm looking to extend into as much of it as I can. I'll try to deny some of it to Red, but again, I'm no longer in an alliance with Blue, so I really don't need to go to war with Red. I think Red has accepted the fact that this island is going to be mine and there's not much he can do about it as of now. I think he'd instead try to focus all his attention on taking out Blue, who is sandwiched between us. Now, I did tell Blue that I would not get aggressive with him if he did not get aggressive with me. You know, if he stays out of neutral territory, if he stays out of my territory, and if he does not attack me, I will be more focused on expanding and focusing on my economy rather than going to war with him. So I still want to focus on consolidating the north up here. And so to begin with, let's just start up in this very top left corner. Let's capture, and then we will have this territory. Now, one thing I do want to mention as well that I will have to keep in mind is that Blue Moon is dangerously close to a typhoon as well himself. He is only, what is that, 1,700, a little bit more than that, 2,200 or something like that, away from a typhoon. I can do math. So there's really only so much I can do in response to that right now, but I will have to keep that in mind as well. There's also no guarantee that Blue Moon will use it the next turn. I think if he does use it against me aggressively, offensively, I think what he'll do is he'll go and he'll get a few kills first in order to get up to the typhoon. He'll pop the typhoon, and then he'll continue with the rest of his attack. And that's something that I do need to be prepared for, especially if he's going to be ending any agreements between us. But the other possibility is he pockets the typhoon and he holds it for a perfect moment. And I think continuing on with the captures here would be ideal. This guy's at 5, but let's hope we can get 2 more turns of capturing in. I will extend this APC out as far as I can. I'm hoping I can maybe block this city as well. Hopefully claim 1 more city and deny that to Red without having to directly engage him. All right, let's continue on with this infantry. On and up as much as we can. Let's move you there because you're out of fuel, and then let's move you there in supply. And yeah, because there might be a typhoon next turn, I'll keep the mech inside for now. I will continue to advance my armor. However, I will take it up this northern route a little more defensively, and I'll kind of slow walk it a bit. I'll really take my time with it, and that will give Blue Moon a little more time to get tangled up with Red so that they're really actively engaged with each other before I have any sort of involvement with them up here in the north. Now, I really need to debate whether I want to try to capture these 2 territories. That would clearly be within Blue's sphere of influence, and he wouldn't like me snagging them. However, I could, and that would be 2 more territories to my name, but I'd have a much more pissed off neighbor. Well, that's one hell of a calculus to try to figure out. Looking at this rocket, one thing it makes me realize is there's not any ideal cities up in the north for me to sit a rocket on for a defensive position. There's 2 factories here, which could work pretty effectively as good cover for them. But ideally, I'd like to keep my rockets off a factory just so I could always produce out of that factory. And these forests are nice, but you see they're 1 less defensive star than a factory even. And you gotta keep in mind I'm lashed, so I get an offensive bonus from those stars as well as a defensive bonus. So I want to be on the highest value cover I can with my rockets. But let's continue to advance. Oh man, I could also grab this property if I also wanted to be mean. You see, I face-checked this battleship with this cruiser here, and well, I guess this battleship just kind of wandered off to the west. So I think I bullied Red out of this city here. So that'll be really nice for me to capture this. Let me try to consolidate my position here a bit. Let's see, where does this battleship go to? Okay. There we go. And we'll hold there for now. I'll try to deploy my battleship maybe to this reef here. That'll be nice to get the star of cover. I think in the middle here there's not too much that I'll do, but seeing as there could be a typhoon coming any turn, I'll actually have both my rockets deployed here on the city so that in case of a typhoon, they'll be the first thing to get repaired up, and from there they'll be repaired back up to 10, and I can decide whether I want to fire on an enemy or if I want to pull them off to repair something else. I think in the mid here I'll just deploy these mechs a little bit further forward like so. I'm gonna actually move this guy up here so that he is a little closer to this city. This guy can stay here. That way he's either 1 turn away from getting repaired or 1 turn away from covering up the comms tower. Not to mention it also gives him the option to move to these spots as well. So he will hold there in a good position. In the south here, I can of course deploy this infantry here to take up that new spot in the line. I can also move this infantry here to hold the mountain cover for me, which will be very nice. This artillery here can hit me, but it's only an 8 health artillery. And this is 4 stars of cover. Meanwhile, a 6 health mech is probably also not going to be enough to finish me off. So these 2 extra squares of infantry will hopefully buy me at least 1 turn of defensive time each. So let's just hope that it's a good trade for this city. And I will allow him to have this city back. Let's move off the city back into this forest cover here, and we can sit just like this. Now I'm a little concerned about him moving an artillery piece to this city. That was an issue for me before, so there's no doubt that that could happen again. But I do think I have a couple different factors of mitigating that. First, I have a rocket right here and a second rocket to deploy, which is more rockets than I had before. I also have this mech here, which I do think I will leave here for now. And this mech here essentially can either move onto this city if it wants to move its 2 full tiles of movement, and then I'll have a mech on the city. Or if he does move an artillery piece here, which will put it in range of my port, so he might very well do that. If he does that, then this mech right here also has the opportunity to just come into range and hit him with some rockets. So that will really threaten and mitigate the risk of an artillery piece that he keeps on this city, hopefully. And of course I have this battleship here, which also covers up in this direction. I can then advance this infantry up to the line, right where I want them. Given that there might be another Typhoon next turn, let's move this APC back up to here. Let's get that mech in there. I think if blue is going to renege on our agreements, then I have no reason not to deploy this rocket, like so. Now, even though there's possibly a Typhoon next turn, might as well join this infantry up here, like so, and move this guy right here, and you right there. And you see what this does, because I have 2 line of infantry here, nothing here, and then we've got this neutral zone between us here. This means that this infantry is blocking anything he produces here, like any of these mechs, from going directly up to my line right here. It forces them to go back, and then either around, or for them to kind of have to move into position and wait right here. And these 2 squares are neutral zone that I negotiated with Blue Moon. So this is kind of the barrier that he's up against. And so this way, he'll be less incentivized to assault this way, because he's got 2 lines of infantry he's got to get through. He won't even be able to get a flanking shot on this mountain infantry here, which means this infantry will have to engage it by itself. And maybe it plus the artillery could take out this infantry. Maybe, maybe not, depending. But that will encourage him to go northward, which is going to be, guess what? In the range of my rockets here. And then all I have to do is defend this island while he engages from the river. So this middle section is a bit of a weak spot, and you can see all these mechs he has, which could just punch right through. But he'd have to stop and engage from the river. That's something I think I could make cost him dearly. I'm more or less happy with these defensive lines kind of as they are, especially now that I've got these 2 squares back. And you see now I've got a little bit of a pinch on him in this factory right here. That just greatly enhances the defensive stature of my entire line right here, and this square as well as this mountain square. This is a much better defensive formation to repel, to absorb and then repel an attack if he does decide to attack next turn. Or any turn, really. Okay, here, let's get this sub 1 more square forward. Okay, we don't find anything, and hopefully, whether he realizes it or not, hopefully this sub does a good job of limiting his movement here. Especially with this shallow water here, no ship's going to be able to get by. So they would have to come this way or this way and hopefully get trapped on this sub. So if blue tries anything aggressive with this fleet, hopefully I'll have at least 1 extra turn of advance notice, and I'll get the drop on them instead of the other way around. You know, I think the fact that Blue Moon's landing boat actually came in contact with one of my submerged subs last turn is going to give him a little bit more credence to the idea that I have this area swarming with a bunch of subs, even though I only have 2. So let's just hope that my mind tricks actually work. Now, if I wanted to go for a nasty ambush on blue, I could have done that this turn. But I'm hoping to avoid that kind of costly, violent confrontation for as long as possible, because it really just benefits me to maintain the status quo for a little while. I think what I can do here as well, him there, move the medium tank forward one, and then move the rocket, and then bam, I get to sit in this forest now, which is nice. And I'll keep my medium tanks in this second line here, or really a third line. Second line to the tanks, first line to the infantry. I'd say this is a pretty good defensive structure, all in all. Alright, down in the southeast here, I will continue to capture with this infantry. If they get hit with a typhoon, it's going to be a nightmare trying to cap through this thing. We'll get there eventually. It just might be a week from now. Okay, so here I will move this ship to the far right, and I will move it up along this way. I'll also hide it, because why not? Now, it's very important I come down here, and I refuel it, and I repair it. Actually, before I do that, you come down here. Repairing that one while you can, why not? You come down here, then you repair that, like so. Now with this battleship down here, I would like to move it out, eventually repair it up with my black boats, and start building other ships here. However, I am so limited by the population cap that I really don't have anything else that I could be building here, so I will leave this battleship in this port for now, and it will continue to repair up that way. So I really got to figure out how much of a squeeze I want to put on blue. I could snag both of these properties, maybe even this third property here, and I could really lock him down with some battleships in the south here, and that would royally screw his day up. However, is that exactly what I'm trying to do? And maybe it isn't. At least not yet. Here I'll continue to play nice with everybody and just keep my battleships nice and safe in the back here. I'll take this sub and I'll actually put it in this port so that he can't capture the port. Let's see, maybe I can use that as a delaying tactic or a bargaining chip. Here I just feel like blue will take back this port if I give him the opportunity to. So I will just keep the black boat here and continue to repair. Okay, so here I think what I will do is I will wait on these properties because Blue Moon simply does not have anything within range to even get to them in the next turn. That will then give me the decision next turn to whether I pull off the properties and let him have them, or whether I want to hold on to them for myself or whatever. So now I suppose all that's really left to do is to figure out exactly what to do with my southern fleet. I know for one thing, I feel like I do need a black boat down here, just to kind of round out my fleet and include one of everything. You've got 2 blue battleships right here. Blue could really move them in whenever he wants. And the problem is, he could move them in range of this port, and then even if I built a battleship in response to try to counter him, he would still have a full turn of shooting on me before I could actually get anything off on him. So I would need to preempt him. I would need to be first. And that's really making me consider putting this battleship here in this reef, and then maybe even building a second battleship. That would be a really powerful force in this area, but that would also probably very much provoke blue. I think in order to avoid provoking another confrontation, I won't go with a battleship. However, what I will do is I'll move this lander right down here, and I actually have a special mission for this lander. So here I will build the black boat, and let us not forget at least 1 infantry on this factory here. I can keep this little peninsula here loaded up with infantry in case he does try to get through with the mechs. Okay, so I do think that's going to do it for me. And with that, I'll end my turn. Alrighty, well that was day 47 of my grand strategy cast. Keep in mind, I am at the very end of the turn, so when I end my turn, I am ending the day, and it is then Blue Moon's turn, the beginning of a new day. Now, in this case, day 48. So thank you so much for following along. I really do appreciate that, especially if you're a subscriber. If this is your first time seeing something like that, then maybe consider subscribing. It really does help me out, and you get to see a little bit more of stuff just like this. Like and comment, you know, all that good stuff. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. And I do love audience feedback down in the comments. I always try to read and respond to all the comments. And hey, if you like this sort of thing, then check out some of these other videos that I have made, including my entire Advanced Wars by Web playlist. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.